It's rugged, remote and mostly inaccessible terrain, far from residential properties and about 70 kilometres southwest of Singleton. Helicopters have been used to contain the bushfire, picking up water from nearby dams and dousing the burning logs and trees with 1,600 litres of water each trip. On the fire edge, more than 20 National Parks firefighters and RFS volunteers are using rake hose and chainsaws to help extinguish any hotspots and guide the helicopter pilots to burning embers.
Yesterday was very successful. We expected that a lot of pressure would go on the fire line and that there would be some breakouts. The firefighters have done an excellent job, supported by helicopter water bombing.
Started by a lightning strike on the weekend, the bushfire has covered 260 hectares, some of that completely burnt out. The scorching heat on Tuesday and Wednesday proved a challenge for firefighters, some suffering heat exhaustion.
We had about 40 degrees, there was low humidity, there was northwesterly wind blowing, and firefighters were expected to walk up sides of hills, over broken terrain, cliff faces, and so they get dehydrated.
About 50 kilometres away in the Wollombi National Park, a smaller bushfire covering 4 hectares was discovered yesterday. It's also been contained. They believe it was lit by an arsonist. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's these cries of distress that staff at the Rutherford RSPCA are greeted with every day. Hundreds of unwanted kittens crammed into the animal shelter's cattery cages, waiting to be adopted. In the past month alone, 500 have been dumped here.
Because we only have limited space here and we have limited space for adoption, that resulted in 422 cats and kittens being euthanised in December.
The shelter has even resorted to unusual measures to increase the kittens' chance of finding a home.
We've actually reduced the price of cats and kittens to $120 for a couple of weeks, in the hopes that we'll get people coming to the RSPCA if they're looking for an animal.
The RSPCA says the problem wouldn't exist if pet owners took responsibility for their animals and got them desexed.
A cat can start breeding once it gets to around about 6 months old, and it can have a litter of kittens, and then they can be 2 weeks old and she can fall pregnant again.
And following recent hot weather, the shelter is issuing a warning to all pet owners about heat stress, a potentially fatal condition. There are some symptoms to watch out for.
Hyperventilating, panting, drooling, obviously quite elevated temperature, they may be vomiting.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's a difficult daily battle, council maintenance crews cleaning up from another graffiti spree. Wouldn't it be good if it could be this easy? A sample of Graffiti Guard has impressed.
Instead of using harsh chemicals or painting to remove the graffiti, we can simply wipe the graffiti off the clear surface by using soap and water.
In a trial of the product, a public toilet block in Hamilton has been coated in the clear varnish, which has a minimum life of 5 years.
This particular toilet block has suffered heavily from graffiti over the last 12 months, and we thought if this product was to be trialled, this would be an excellent location to look how it works.
Council workers will assess the building daily to see if they really can just wash away graffiti stains. It's already being used by other organisations with success, but whether it proves a cost-effective alternative to the hard slog of traditional removal methods remains to be seen.
We need to compare the cost of applying the product compared to the cost of using conventional chemicals to remove graffiti.
The trial will run for 3 months.
Tarek Elrich will make his 50th A-League appearance tomorrow night, and all of them for the Jets.
I remember coming here as a young boy, 18 years of age, missing home, and now I'm 22 and up to 50 games, which is, it's a great honour playing for the club.
And the Jets would like to think he'll stick around for 50 more. That's if overseas clubs don't get to him first.
I've still got another year on my contract, and we're actually in negotiations with Newcastle again, and I'm in no rush.
For now, the midfielder has Friday on his mind and Adelaide in his sights, desperate to avoid the wooden spoon and keep a personal record intact.
I've actually never finished at the bottom of the table at any level, so I don't want it to be after a great season last year, and we're going to go out there and fight till the end.
Even then, another battle looms at the Asian Champions League with the draw put together last night. The reigning A-League champions in Group E, along with Beijing Guan, a team Ryan Griffiths will join and set to oppose brothers Adam and Joel. J-League side Nagoya Grampus was drawn in the same pool, as was Ulsan Hyundai from Korea. Hardly easy beats, but the consensus is the Jets have dodged some major bullets, in particular Japanese powerhouse Gamba Osaka.
We've avoided the so-called big guns of each of the countries, so it's a good draw for us.
The Mariners feel the same about their pool, Group H. Anne-Marie Putney hasn't bowled competitively for 5 weeks now. Even today it was more of a family gathering, but this 10-pin pro can't stop winning, from World Cups to Commonwealth Championships.
It's a shock. I didn't know I was going to do all this like 28 years ago when I first started bowling. I was just doing it for fun, and then I just got stuck into it and just kept going from there.
This week, the 38-year-old mother of two was named in the World 10-Pin Hall of Fame for women, with just one bowler inducted every year.
It's every country in the world. It implies professional bowlers, amateur bowlers, the lot. Everybody has an opportunity to get to the Hall of Fame.
But few make it. Putney is just the third Australian to enjoy such recognition by her peers, the World Bowling Writers Association in Chicago. Given the accolade, could they now script a farewell? How long do you keep going for?
As long as my body can handle it.
I think at the moment someone overseas is 97 and still bowling, so why not?
This Hanbury Street building is well protected, and the police will allege for good reason after locating a so-called treasure trove inside a secret room on the second floor.
When we look at jewellery that was seized and also items of equipment, electronic equipment, certainly it was best described as Aladdin's Cove.
Causing most concern were the amount and variety of the weapons they allegedly found. A range of rifle, shot and handguns with replicas and silencers. A crossbow, slingshot, gun parts and thousands of rounds of ammunition. On the ground floor, they located another 2 rifles and a target pistol. All this allegedly inside a building just metres from a bus stop and Waratah train station.
To take those guns off the street, I think for the community is an excellent outcome.
Given the nature of the find, the police say the contents could very well belong to a bikie gang. The weapons have since been sent to forensics for testing, which could reveal a connection to other crimes. Police say it could also be a collector and one with a penchant for rare animals. National Parks removed a range of reptiles allegedly obtained on the black market.
I'm unaware of any permits that have been held by the residents of the house at Hanbury Street.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
For 15 years, South Newcastle has been a favourite hangout for skaters. But the facility's days could be numbered if council agrees to build the skateboarding fraternity a new park. Discussions have begun in the form of a council skate park review and possible locations pegged out.
And there has been rumours that Bar Beach is a site. There's also the foreshore.
Plans which include a bowl and street course have even been drawn up.
And a lot of these designs are urban designs as well, so a lot of the times these skate parks don't look like a skate park. It's still got plants and bushes and all that around it, so it doesn't look like a concrete mass.
Mirvac is currently building a $375 million development right across the road from the South Newcastle skate park and has made a developer contribution to council. But council says nothing has been decided about that facility or any other park.
Where we go, there'll be some distance down the track before we know exactly where we're going to go, but certainly an interesting time and we need to move with the times.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. It's called the Safe Sack, a lockable backpack that thieves simply can't penetrate, let alone steal. The inspiration behind Simon Hassan's invention came from an experience at this very beach.
They kept saying it over the loudspeaker that bags being stolen, watch out for your bags, beware there's bag thieves around, and that's when I thought, well, maybe there needs to be, I can go out and get something that can stop that, and there wasn't really anything in the markets.
So Simon decided to create his own.
It's quite a simple design. All we did is came up with a normal bag and then made the reinforced shoulder strap allowed to go around a fixture, and then we get a combination lock that goes through the zippers to lock it shut.
The lock also acts as a tether, securing the bag to any nearby fence, post or even beach flag. The sack's reinforced straps are almost impossible to cut through. Simon sells the backpacks at his shop in the Hunter Street Mall, but says financial gain isn't his motivation behind their mass production.
And if it limits the amount of bags being stolen, I'm happy.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Waiting for a train was a bit more entertaining than usual today at Newcastle Station, as a lone Elvis marked what's becoming an annual pilgrimage to Australia's answer to Graceland, parks. Around 400 other impersonators were heading there today for the start of the Elvis Festival, most taking the service from Sydney Central Station. Unfortunately, this guy got a bit mixed up. Nevertheless, he had a good time, giving tips on playing the King. One important tip on playing Elvis in the heat of the Australian summer.
Well, I tend to use light fibre, microfibre, because I don't want to sweat too much there.
Unfortunately, he got so carried away, he missed his cue. But not to worry, he's got alternative means of transport. It's not a Cadillac, so it might take a while. Bridget Wild, NBN News.
After a season played mostly in suburban grounds, Energy Australia Stadium seemed a world away today for the Jets.
Today I was up, I was early, I was prepared earlier. I don't know, I was just excited to come in.
At least Amber Nelson has played on the surface before. Many of the squad got their first look today, ahead of tomorrow's semi-final, and that's when they really need to be firing.
We've been a good 60 or 70 minute team, and as you mentioned, that's important that we maintain some of that nervous energy up our sleeve just in case it possibly goes to extra time.
An ongoing calf problem will see captain Cheryl Salisbury start off the bench for a game that could propel Newcastle into the W League decider and the chance to claim the region some more football silverware. First things first though.
I think Canberra are probably a little bit cocky, if I can say that, but I think they're going to come out and have a shock playing against us.
They got their first look at EA Stadium this afternoon, but Hayley Crawford knows about this place, having been raised in the region. All players will have added incentive with confirmation today the Matildas will play Italy twice in just a few weeks' time, and Australian selectors will be watching.
There's one thing playing for the Jets, but then it's a completely different story playing for your country, so it's definitely a motivator.
Given he spends so much of his time playing in America, Nathan Green just loves being at home. But in a few days he'll return to the US with a fresh approach after a disappointing 2008 by his standards.
Last year definitely was a step back. I didn't really have a chance to win at all, and that's kind of disappointing. So this year I've just got to get that bit of hunger back.
A forced break to recover from a knee problem late last year, coupled with solid domestic form in events played this summer, has definitely helped do that, and he plans to keep it that way.
I'll try and work a bit smarter and maybe not practice as much, but practice better, and just mentally I have to improve a lot. I think that's been letting me down, especially probably the last year and a half.
With a drop in ranking comes a rethink to his schedule this season, but it's about being back in contention more often, which he's focusing on, and a good start would only help that. His first event will be in Hawaii starting January 15, alongside fellow hunter and tour debutant James Nitties.
At the end of the day, I sort of thought if I can just race consistently and keep my nose clean, not get in anyone's way, hopefully I'll have a good chance of doing well, and that sort of happened to be the case for the week, which was great.
It's a tragic situation that apparently isn't getting any better.
Again, we turned away over 1,100 people, and over 500 of these were children.
Most were escaping violent homes. To raise awareness of the issue, Carrie's Place is hosting 3 performances of the internationally acclaimed Vagina Monologues.
Giving the women who work with us a public voice to really share their experience and be part of raising the awareness about how prevalent domestic violence is.
Recent crime statistics show domestic violence has dropped 13% in the Hunter, but Ms Wagner says that figure doesn't reflect reality.
The reason may be that with the pro-arrest policy the police adheres to now is that many women get arrested because they start to fight back and they're more reluctant to call the police and to report. I don't think it is a decrease in domestic violence.
The performances will be held in February and March. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Another game, another loss.
Look, it's the same old story. The first half I thought we had some opportunities, but we didn't take them.
In a season of hard knocks, Newcastle got no favours last night at Hindmarsh. The new Jets captain, Joel Griffiths, was a moving target. Strangely enough, it was he who made it into the referee's notebook. But few will forget who scored the first in a hurry. Fabian Barbiero squeezing home from an impossible angle for one of the goals of the season. Milligan tried to make his mark for the Jets in what was Newcastle's only real first half chance. It only took a simple turnover for Adelaide to pounce in the second, and the game was gone. One of several teenage debutants last night, Jesse Pintos, was less than spectacular. Coming on as a substitute, he was then replaced after just 15 minutes. But with the Asian Champions League fast approaching, more changes in the air.
It's a results-driven industry, and by the fact that we're coming last means that there's a number of the players that are within our group who won't be happy because it's been proven over a whole season that they're not good enough.
Lisa Watt's emotional scars will never heal. Last May, and 12 weeks into a new pregnancy, the mother of 3 had a miscarriage at Maitland Hospital.
If it had happened here at home, I would have dealt with it. You know, I've dealt with the loss, I've gone through the grief and everything from losing our child, but nothing will ever erase that memory.
Ms Watt claims emergency staff told her that no beds were available, that there was nothing they could do and to come back in 3 hours. However, just seconds after being turned away, she miscarried in a hospital toilet.
I flushed and I couldn't believe it myself that I just had to flush my baby.
She says the hospital assured her it wouldn't happen again and was outraged to hear about Jodie Whiteside and another as yet unnamed woman's almost identical ordeals in December, and there could be even more cases.
I'm very concerned that we've now got these 3 cases that have come to light, and I know to others that haven't yet, but I understand have happened there.
In a statement, Hunter New England Area Health CEO said, "I am extremely disappointed to hear other women have had a similar experience to Jodie Whiteside at Maitland Hospital. It is obvious guidelines are not being adhered to and there is still more to be done." The minister says it won't happen again.
I'll be making sure that Dr Lyons from the Hunter New England Area Health Service puts in place protocols to make sure that the staff at Maitland understand their obligations.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The Cathode Classic may not attract the big-name pros, but to many loyal riders who sign up each year, they wouldn't miss it for quids. Celebrating 30 years since the first event here, it's grown into a real community contest.
It's gone through generation to generation. I mean, this is my 23rd consecutive competition here, and my son's, it's his second time he surfed in it. My daughter surfs in it.
Dr Glenn Villaire won the 3 major finals last year, including the Opens, but he settled for the over 40s title this time around. Justin Lee took out the over 30s and then had to back up in the decider of the main draw. That 6-man final was dominated by just one, Lake Munmora's Mick Spencer. Having surfed the Pro Junior Series and World qualifying events in recent years, he returned to the Classic this year, and after an opening 10-point ride, he backed it up with this to easily claim the title from Tyler Williams.
Staff at Maitland Hospital were called to a meeting early this morning following more revelations of women miscarrying their babies in unacceptable conditions after arriving at the emergency ward. Dr Nigel Lyons says Hunter New England Health acknowledges things need to change.
We're taking immediate steps to address the issues, but more importantly now we need to have the review process undertaken that will give us an opportunity to put more detailed and more thoughtful recommendations in place.
Today, staff were told to use caring words instead of medical jargon when speaking to women who have just lost a child.
Sometimes it's, we'd lose sight of just that personal part of the interaction. So I think it is an important area for us to focus on and emphasise.
And women who have miscarried at the hospital will also be offered more emotional support.
Women have been provided a pamphlet which talks about what they can do if they've got concerns and need follow-up. What we're now doing is changing that to ensure that we're active in contacting them and follow-up to ensure that their care needs are being met.
But Dr Lyons couldn't guarantee the same thing wouldn't happen again. And women are continuing to come forward. Just this morning, NBN News was contacted by a Madawi woman who said that she too was mistreated at Maitland Hospital when she miscarried in April 2007. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It gives new meaning to the morning peak. But today's king tide and subsequent water views were nothing new for Paul Smith, and neither's the fight to prevent flooding in front of his Carrington home.
Council can do something about it. That's the frustrating part about it, is the valves behind me here on the head wall are faulty and need to be replaced.
Newcastle Council says they will be with the project in this year's budget. Until the work is done, a 1.7 metre tide is enough to cause the build-up of water from Throsby Creek.
In high rain events, yeah, sure, we expect to see water pool here, but not on a day like this.
And it wasn't the day experts forecast, the tide topping 2.05 metres in Newcastle, but enough to cause beach erosion, prompting this grim warning from climate change activists.
We're going to see extreme high tides about 50 times a year by the year 2050.
In the short term, we're being told to prepare for more mozzies, given the king tide breeding boom, especially around mangroves and creeks. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
9 days ago, the Raymond Terrace Community Centre was severely damaged in an explosion after a bin was set alight next to a gas cylinder. Exactly 1 week later, there was more mayhem in the town. On Saturday night, 10 bins surrounding this gas tank were set alight, so were 2 more in Sturgeon Street. This business was also broken into. Local shop owners believe they know who's responsible for at least some of the crimes.
Yeah, there's a group of local youths there, there's about 10 of them, and they come in and terrorise our store and lots of other stores in the terrace. They just know that there's not much that can happen to them because they're youths, and so they just do it for fun. They think it's funny.
The town's business owners say they've had enough. Lily's Hairdressers has been robbed 5 times in just 3 years.
The insurance company's basically said that if we're broken into one more time, we won't be covered for insurance purposes.
The business sector wants more police on the beat.
We certainly are aware of it, we are acting and we're remaining focused on it, and we're putting the resources towards it to try to reduce it as much as possible.
Meanwhile, 5 children are believed to be responsible for throwing at least 8 rocks at this train last night, damaging its windshield and a passenger window. Police say they were captured on CCTV running away from the Thornton train station just after the attack at 11 p.m. Madeline Bond, NBN News. Looking confident on the back of their bikes, John Tate and Lee Shearer learned the basics of being law-abiding bikers when they took the first spin towards getting their motorcycle licences.
They are a lot of fun. If you respect them and understand them, they're a lot of fun.
The pair hope more people will follow their example.
That'll be good for the city. It'll mean that people have got cheap and easy transport and the fun of doing it.
The Lord Mayor says less people in cars and more on motorbikes will also yield environmental benefits for the city. What's more, it could help ease Newcastle CBD's parking problems.
You'll never ever build enough parking space for cars related to the demand. So car spaces have got to turn over, and that's why there's timed parking and that's why there's a cost to it. Whereas motorcycle parking can be done much more cheaply.
Council is even considering allowing bikes to park on the city's footpaths.
We've tentatively taken some steps to increase motorcycle parking in the city. I expect that will expand as demand expands.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
A quiet creek, pretty to look at, but what these kids really want to know is what lurks beneath.
I found heaps of little fishes. I found little fishes too.
A water scorpion.
Wow, what's that?
It looks like a scorpion and it lives in the water.
These school holidays, the Junior Rangers program is all about water, finding out what lives in it and discovering fun new ways to play on it. Racing boats they made themselves from black bean pods. It's easy to see why the program's so popular.
First it sunk and then I had a little nudge and it worked again.
It's got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we sort of try and limit the numbers and try and have different programs, so it's fantastic.
This is the 9th year of the Junior Rangers, getting back to nature, clearly back in style.
Especially these days with the urban sprawl happening, there's not much bushland left, and Blackbutt's 182 hectares, so the kids really enjoy it.
A $10,000 sponsorship from Newcastle Permanent has boosted the program, including kitting out volunteers in new uniforms. Blackbutt's Aqua Action continues until the end of next week.
I don't think it's been very professional. I've certainly never been treated like that in 20 years of a playing career. You've got a kid fresh out of N-Swiss, put him on for 16 minutes and then sub him and then absolutely bag him in the press conference after. I think it's completely disgusting.
In my opinion, he would be better coming here and playing for the 6 months for Asian Championship, playing serious games in a big competition to keep his foot in the door for the Socceroos.
If you needed a snapshot of the Jet season, it came late in today's training session when Mark Milligan was helped from the field with a knee problem to a stand already full of injured players. A range of those, along with suspensions, representative duty and recruitment failures, make up a long list of the dramas Newcastle has endured this season. Together, they've conspired to leave the team with a wooden spoon and dealing with a blame game of finger-pointing, which inevitably ends up with the coach as one of the main targets.
I'm not one to walk away from it, definitely, because I still think that we're not too far away from getting it right.
That'll rest largely on the quality of recruitment, and the January transfer window is their big chance to bring in much-needed experience. Given their issues with that this season, fans will be watching closely. Marquee signing Edmundo Zura left without scoring a goal, while Jasper Hawkinson and Kaz Patafta have been used sparingly in the top grade so far this season.
You know, if someone's not happy, they just need to knock on our door and let us know that they're not happy, and we can negotiate something.
Trialists, though, will soon start to appear, but as yet, no big-name overseas-based players.
John Brady from England, who's a Newcastle boy, who's going to be here, I believe, after the Perth game, so we'll have a look at him.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Much like scores of beachgoers every day, these people are swimming with sharks as well. The difference is they know they are.
You've got to be careful, even in this environment. You know, I'd still watch my fingers and that around them.
Actually, I get the impression they're more frightened of us than what we are of them.
It's a view shared by the Shark and Ray Centre at Bob's Farm, dismissing the recent attacks as unlucky, extremely unlucky.
You're still 300 times more likely to die of drowning in the water.
than you are of a shark biting you.
That's why, when it does, we hear so much about it. An attack is rare, a fatal one even more so.
The statistics still show it's on average, it's 2 a year. It's a very low number.
Newcastle trawler fishermen say in the last 12 months they've never seen so many sharks off the continental shelf. But closer to the coast, there's been no increase in sightings, as is reportedly the case off Sydney. Paul Holbert is the government's hunter shark meshing contractor.
Probably, just an average season for us. Yeah, we haven't seen any great increases in sharks.
In saying that,
there's always sharks out there. It's just unlucky that these people have been attacked lately.
Over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge increase in the amount of bait fish coming in close to shore. The sharks are simply following them in for a feed.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. In 18 months, Surf House could go from this to this. Newcastle developer Keith Stronach has put the plans on public display and is now awaiting council approval.
If you look at what's up and down the coast, I mean, this will be as good as anything, I think probably better than most in terms of function and facility.
The $5 million, 3-level development will comprise of a takeaway shop and public amenities block on the ground floor, function centre in the middle, and an a la carte restaurant and bar on top. The building has been designed to take full advantage of its beachfront location.
Well, we've gone for the glass to make the building transparent, and also, with a view like that in that location, I think people would appreciate being able to see it from all angles.
And it even features a surfboard-shaped roof. Council is happy to see something finally happening at the site after 13 years of neglect.
I think it should be successful. We need to get the report from council officers and we can't preempt the decision. But there is a need to get this project up and running.
All going according to plan, construction should start in June, with the building operational by mid-2010. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Tucked behind the family law court, Rose Cottage has stood the test of time for almost 180 years. This month, Paul and Ben Gallagher have been adding a fresh batch of Canadian shingles to give the building new life. But you won't see power tools used here.
We do it the same with our slate roof work and copper work. It's all hands-on.
This form of carpentry is a dying art, but the last time the roof was restored in the 80s, Paul was overlooked in favour of a Sydney crew.
The building industry was in a downturn at the time, and there was a lot of tradesmen and not a lot of work, so we missed out then.
The cottage has survived earthquakes and floods, and the boys believe it's all thanks to materials and skills which are fast disappearing.
The problem with today's building is that they're either polystyrene or they're pine that grows overnight with no strength or no durability. And I think down the track that'll be proven when a lot of the buildings that have been built today won't last.
The father and son team believe their restoration work won't receive the attention it deserves unless the building becomes part of the tourist trail. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
These night vision goggles were put to the test last night after the rescue team was called to help a lady in distress at Willow Tree between Tamworth and Murrurundi.
Without a shadow of doubt, probably took 45 minutes off the time it would have taken us to do it without goggles.
Allowing the chopper to fly faster wasn't the goggles' only benefit.
When we got to the scene, the ambulance were having trouble finding a landing site. So we just told them to park at the house, and we found an area right next door, which they had never seen and they wouldn't have seen. So it made a big difference to us.
It's taken 14 years to get the 5 pairs of goggles, which are worth $25,000 each. The new equipment, pilots say, will make a great service even better.
It probably won't change the number of missions we go on or get airborne for, but it will make a huge change the number of jobs we actually complete, because we'd normally turn back because we can't see.
And $200,000 worth of repair work to Westpac 1 should be complete by the end of the week. The chopper's windscreen, main rotor blade and body was damaged when the helicopter clipped trees in low cloud on Christmas Day while rescuing a man from a Cessna plane crash near Mudgee. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The name Van Egmond has been in Australian football circles for decades, but more than 20 years after Gary Van Egmond represented at the Olympics with the Socceroos, his daughter Emily is tipped to earn her first Matildas call-up. At just 15 years of age, it'd be a huge step up, but one she's ready for.
I would love to have the experience to go into camp and just see what it's really like.
One of 5 Jets players requested to continue training with the Matildas team named next week. It would cap a meteoric rise. Just where Cheryl Salisbury's football future now sits, though, remains open to speculation. After a frustrating W-League season ended at the weekend in yet another painful injury, the chance to lead her country on home soil once more could yet round out the career for Australia's most capped international.
Still a bit of fire in the belly to get back out and play and enjoy the game. I want to get to the Italian series, play some game time, and we'll see how I feel after that.
It seems a similar sentiment for her long-serving national vice-captain Joey Peters, who may also bring the curtain down on her international career against Italy. As for the Jets' W-League future, it remains bright, so long as funding arrives before next season.
We're the only team that doesn't get paid. I don't get paid to do this, so you know, it's all up in the air.
The Knights board has been forced to defer meetings that could decide Brian Smith's future at the club, and while there's evidence enough to suggest he'll get a favourable outcome when they do meet, he knows nothing's a fait accompli in this game.
And my preferred option would be to be here for quite a bit longer. You know, in the meantime, I'm not letting grass grow under my feet, and you know, I'm checking out what else is out there for myself at the moment.
He'll know more when the board sits down on the 28th of January. Either way, Corey Patterson says their next move won't influence his.
I think it's more of a club decision whether they want to keep a player, and same as me, you know, it has to. It's not just the coach, it's the whole club and the boys, and that's got to help make my decisions.
Being slated Newcastle's #1 retention target should help that, but the 21-year-old doesn't expect a new deal to be struck before season kick-off.
It's probably, about 6-8 weeks before that's happening, and I haven't heard anything, so usually the process can drag out a bit, so ideally it'd be good to have that done, but I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think he's at a point in his career where he needs to take a risk. You know, he needs to make sure that he's in the right place to continue to develop his game, and so far the Knights have done a good job for him.
As for the pre-season, Ben Cross joined his injured Origin teammate Kurt Gidley on the sideline today, but isn't a major cause of concern, while outside back James McManus has returned to full training after off-season groin surgery. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
If you weren't queuing for a water slide or an ice cream, then you were in the wrong place today. This fellow certainly had the right idea. Poolside was popular, but getting there a little tricky. The beach also drew a big crowd, but lifeguards were sprouting the common sense cookbook of slip, slop, slap.
Over the last 2 days we've had a couple of sort of heat exhaustion and dehydration, and people aren't preparing by drinking enough water during that middle of the day.
About 2:30, a small shark was spotted near the flags at Newcastle Beach, but it was just a scare.
There's been a few sightings over the last week or so, but as long as we're doing the right protocol and checking and looking around and making sure that jet ski's out, we're quite safe.
By mid-afternoon, we'd turned on enough air conditioners around the valley to create the second highest load on the local power grid ever. Although the system coped and demand was way off the record, Energy Australia says had it been outside school holidays, we could have been in trouble. A total fire ban is in place until midnight tomorrow. About 3 p.m, a blaze began in National Park and Hunter Waterland off Richardson Road at Finnan Park near Grahamstown Dam. 14 Rural Fire Service units remain at the scene. Penny Evans, NBN News. Newcastle couldn't have put on better weather to demonstrate why it's been chosen as the solar industry's national headquarters. Fulfilling an election promise, Martin Ferguson today announced the Australian Solar Institute will be up and running from the local CSIRO centre by July.
The next 10 to 15 years there's going to be a major transformation of the Australian energy sector, and this institute is going to help drive that transformation.
It's all about trying to reduce the cost of these technologies to make them cost competitive with other energy generation technologies.
The Institute will focus on research and development, with $100 million put aside for grants that, to use the Minister's words, should take the industry from niche to network.
We believe we've created a framework to facilitate the commercialisation of the industry in Australia, and that's about creating new green job opportunities for the future.
$5 million will go to building a thermal tower at the Steel River site to look at storage and efficiency issues.
So it'll be something somewhat similar to what we've got here now, another system similar to that, but for a very different process.
Several jobs and research positions will be created in establishing the Institute in the Hunter. Penny Evans, NBN News.
They're marketing it as a green industrial area, which is a first, I understand, so that'll be really a plus for Singleton too.
Seven Melbourne University students are very publicly living on the streets after they were evicted from a university-owned terrace yesterday.
Obviously we were very surprised and very disappointed that it's come to this.
Obviously we've just been thrown out, so yeah, at the moment it's a bit uncertain.
And that seems to be the problem for students around the country, with a shortage of cheap rental properties available.
So this is something that students have been going to government about again and again.
A room at the University of Newcastle costs between $150 to $200 a week, a price some say is too high. Combined with the rising youth unemployment rate and rental prices, and the city's students are taking drastic action.
They just have to find the cheapest possible accommodation, and for some students that means squatting.
Last year, one student even resorted to living in the university library's basement, apparently undetected for a month. The Student Association now wants the federal government to lower the age of independence to 18 so students can access Centrelink benefits as soon as they leave high school. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
So we'll be going through those options in some detail, looking at the cost benefit, and obviously no decision will be made until a viable alternative is found that's fully funded.
The Newcastle Jet looks as comfortable with a guitar as she does with a football, every bit the waltzing Matilda.
I started playing the guitar and singing back with my family. Got a family of musicians and we all just used to have family jams around the dinner table.
Church also nurtured the musical midfielder's talent, but it was only last year that Joey found her voice through tragedy. The sister of Matilda's teammate Joe Burgess died of cancer at just 38, and Peters wanted to help the family, doing so the only way she knew.
They played the song Ultimate Love at her funeral, at Karen's funeral, and I mean that just blew me away, just their reaction to it, and that they got it, they understood.
She even wrote an anthem for the Matildas leading up to the Athens Olympics. She calls it her legacy to the side, which brings us to the question, what lies beyond football?
Yeah, retirement I guess is coming up shortly, and I feel like I'll always stay in the game. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited for the adventure ahead.
Raw emotion, dedicated and ultimately entertaining, it's these things Peters can carry over from one career to the next. With last year's winner Julie Boland in the mix, the final group to tee off was also the tournament's frontrunners. Despite the heat, all three took time to warm up on a day in which an umbrella just wasn't enough, and neither was a near-perfect and soon-to-be painful putt. Despite early disappointment for Coonabarabran's Rebecca Flood, the 20-year-old still has plenty to look forward to.
This tournament's just a builder for the start of the year, and if I get off to a good start, well, that's, a bonus. But if not, just working towards the Australian Open and ANZ Masters really in the next couple of weeks.
Perth amateur Whitney Hillier was also feeling the heat. Even before a club was swung, the 18-year-old was a marked woman, given she is the reigning Australian and WA junior champion.
I guess I put my name up there, so just got to keep it up and keep it going.
And keep cool. Sydney's Jessica No was best at doing that, finishing the day as leader at 4 under. Adam McIlwright, NBN News.